Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. About a month ago or so, Humza Yousaf was panicking. He had to get up on a stage and make a speech at the party conference. And he looked at his speech and it was empty. It was vacuous. It was devoid of anything exciting. There was no hook in that speech. Seconds before he gets up, he has one of those light bulb moments. Bing! And he knew that he could save it. He could make people listen to him. He would be the saviour and everybody would love him. And so he announced, literally there and then, without a second's thought, a complete freeze on council tax. Meanwhile, you could see everyone else shocked. They'd never discussed this. They didn't know anything about this. The Greens weren't happy. Shona Robinson wasn't happy. Only yesterday, she had to write to Jeremy Hunt, begging him not to reduce taxes in England because they would likely have to follow suit in Scotland. And they can't afford it. And it turns out that this council tax freeze is £500 million. And they definitely can't afford that either. And indeed, they are deeply, deeply screwed to the point that they're about £2 billion in a black hole mess. All because the Brains Trust couldn't think of anything better than just announcing a council tax freeze, which he can't afford. And so the councils are going to have to find the money. And they're not finding it in good places. Let's have a look. So Humza Yousaf warned council tax freeze could be funded by cuts in teacher posts. Oh yes, you've got to find £500 million. How much have you got? Oh, a little bit short. How far short? About £500 million. Literally cannot afford what they've promised. But he had to promise it because otherwise it would have been a pointless effort. Him standing there in Aberdeen looking at the 44 people who turned up, going, yay, here's my great speech, yay, and then nothing. Well, he announced that he's got to follow up on it, and they haven't got the money. Anyway, the country's most senior councillor has said scrapping arbitrary teacher numbers should be agreed in return for a freeze. In other words, can we please cut teacher numbers if we're going to deliver a council tax freeze? Yeah, okay, go ahead, go for it. Because thankfully, the education system in Scotland is so good, you don't need to worry about having sufficient numbers of teachers. You know, if you can pack those kids in 70 to a class, who cares? You know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But this is what happens when idiots are given, the position. Don't let idiots make decisions. There we go. I keep saying it. Stop letting the idiots have power. Humza Yousaf has been warned town hall bosses will only support a council tax freeze if they are allowed to cut teacher numbers to balance the books. Council chiefs also said national plans to protect the time teachers spent in front of pupils need to be axed. Andrea Bradley, General Secretary of the EIS Trade Union, said, "It is simply nonsensical to suggest that reducing the number of teachers in our schedules or cutting the length of the pupil week is in any way linked to improving educational outcomes." The First Minister infuriated local authorities when he announced a council tax freeze during his speech at the SNP conference without consulting them, breaking, of course, an agreement that they had with them. And it is not good. They are not happy with him, but what do you do? It's too late now. He's announced it. You can't go back without looking like an idiot. Although already he looks like an idiot, it's not going to change anything. Anyway, they fear a freeze will be funded on the cheap and result in councils having to make deep cuts to lifeline services. A letter to Yousaf from Shona Morrison, who is the president of the council body COSLA, repeated the frustration felt over the freeze and set out a list of conditions for backing the policy. And these are pretty harsh conditions. One of the things is that at the moment, teachers aren't guaranteed. There's a certain number of teachers guaranteed in every school on the basis of ratio of children to teachers, and the amount of time they actually spend in front of the class rather than doing admin is also guaranteed. And the councils want that changed so that basically they're allowed to get rid of teachers and increase class sizes. Anyway, one of the biggest asks is councils making their own decisions on teacher numbers. I literally just said this. Local authorities want to cut posts earlier this year to protect other services, but this was prevented by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. In her letter, Morrison called for the removal of arbitrary teacher numbers. It's not arbitrary if it's arrived at in a scientific basis where there is not too many pupils to each teacher. She wrote, improving outcomes for children and young people cannot be provided by teachers alone. Was in my day. We didn't have teaching assistants and all that in my day. We had the teacher. Different subjects, obviously went did maths with a maths teacher, English with an English teacher and that. But that was the only person in the room was the teacher. Anyway, improving outcomes for children and young people cannot be provided by teachers alone, she said. It requires a range of supports and services that should be for local determination, including social work support, early intervention programmes for children and families, early years, school transport, breakfast and after-school clubs. And again, these are things, I'm not saying they're not important. I do get it. And especially feeding some of these children, I do know that the breakfast clubs especially can be very beneficial, especially for children from poorer backgrounds. I don't deny that. But some of it is a bit too much, I think. Secondary school children having teaching assistants. You're not doing your job. If you're a teacher and you're needing a teaching assistant, it's almost like, in my mind, you're not doing your job. Maybe things have changed. Maybe the world is different. I don't know. Anyway, he said the funding that the Scottish Government has provided and the settlement should be able to be used to provide the very best support for our children and young people, whether that be a teacher, a pupil support staff or family support. Now, I would say family support should be a social issue, not a school education issue. So maybe you could put family support down in the social budget and move it out of the school budget. There's the thing. Head teachers, think hard and long on that one. Improve your budget by removing excess costs. Anyway, USAF's government is also consulting on plans to set a minimum number of hours on the education pupils receive each year. I also think that is a good idea for once. Having a minimum time when they're actually being taught rather than just sitting there looking out a window, waiting for someone to come along. Probably a better idea. Anyway, this was prompted by concerns that councils were proposing to cut class contact time to plug massive funding for Black Hole. So basically, cut the number of teachers and cut the time spent with the teacher in the class. Neither of those are going to improve the education for schools. I mean, how can that? Scotland's education system is already challenged without making it worse. There is no reason to do this. So this lady here, Duncan Glancy, she is the Labour MP responsible for education. She's the education spokesman. She said, instead of being able to take time and make the best decisions for the future of education, councils are being forced to react to the SNP's chaotic policy and rushed choices. But nobody knew it was coming. They've already set their budgets, and then all of a sudden they're told, no, you ain't getting that money. We're freezing it. Pull hairs out, yells at these people. What is it with the Brains Trust? What is it? How can Humza Yousaf be that stupid and still function as a human being? It is beyond it. It makes you lose the power of speech trying to think down to his level, don't you? Anyway, Scottish Lib Dem MSP Willie Rennie said, education has become the SNP's defining failure, having stripped schools of well-qualified teachers through their 15 years in power. Ooh, 17 years nearly now, Willie. The nationalist shambolic stance on council tax threatens to make those problems even worse. If this freeze is to be imposed, councils will need to be compensated in full to prevent an axing of vital services. That is to say, don't say the council tax will be frozen and then not give them what the council tax rise would have been. Got to be fully funded. That's central money, and that will break them. And the thing is, it's only for 1 year. So what are they going to do next year when they go, right, well, this year we're going to put it up, say, 8%. Next year we're going to put it up another 6%. It means, oh, look, there's a freeze this year. Next year it's got to go up 14%. That is going to batter people next year. But that's the SNP. They lack of foresight. So damn stupid. At a time, of course, when Scottish schools are falling apart, he's looking to make them worse. God help the kids of Scotland. Got no chance in this world when you've got people like that deciding that you're just not going to be given a suitable education. Coming up. Of course, not educating children is also part of the SNP plan. You know, a stupid population, an uneducated population, is a population that won't question what you're doing to them. They won't have the sense to know that you're screwing them over each and every day. So it's not accidental that this fall from grace, from Scottish education being one of the best in the world to being one of the worst in the Western world, certainly, it's not a mistake. It is policy. Oh well, this is what happens when idiots are given power. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been illuminating. Certainly more illuminating than the kids are going to get when they go to school next year. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and let's just hope to God we can get the SNP out and that the children of Scotland have at least half decent education soon. Bye.